Greetings, Deep Dive Podcast listeners. This is your boy, Sam Oram, coming at you with another episode of the Deep Dive Podcast. Man, this year is rolling right along. We've hit the month of March, so things are going splendidly with the podcast. We're being able to just share our message of empowerment. I've been so excited over the last few weeks. Last month, that we highlighted Black History Month, the month of February. We gave topics throughout that month, and that was really exciting for us. I think that a lot of people got mileage from those episodes. If you have not had an opportunity to listen to the Black History Month episodes, you definitely want to go back to the Deep Dive Podcast.live, LIVE website, and take a listen to those episodes. I think you get a lot of information from those episodes. I know a lot of people did give some good feedback on that, so I appreciate that. For those of you who are new to our podcast, welcome. Welcome to the Deep Dive Podcast. We're in season 3. We're rolling right along, having some fun, empowering some people, just having some laughs and sharing some information. Tonight's episode is it's going to be uplifting and empowering from a standpoint of I want to share with you about how to become unstuck, if you will. A lot of people feel stuck. As a matter of fact, I'm so passionate about this particular topic, I'm probably going to break it up into 2 different episodes, 2 different parts. So I'll do part 1 tonight, and then part 2 will follow up on next Thursday, because there's a very clear distinction between 2 thoughts that I want to share with you on, just what does it mean to become unstuck. But before I get into the topic, I always like to thank all of our listeners. I don't want to ever take you for granted. People tuning in from all over the world, 172 countries around the world, and I don't take that lightly. So I really appreciate that. Also, I wanted to, this is funny. I shared this with a few people on a different call, but on last week's podcast, one of my favorite teachers of all times was on the podcast. She was my elementary teacher. She taught English, and a beautiful, beautiful person, a beautiful, beautiful spirit. Her name is Lorna Ivy, and hopefully she's tuned in tonight, because I wanted to give her a shout out, say thank you for all the things that you did for me in terms of helping me through my education. It's funny because I saw I'll call her Lauren now since we're both adults, but I saw her on a previous episode of the podcast, and it just so happened to be one of those episodes where, I was going off on a tangent, as I sometimes do. I was ranting and raving about something. I don't even remember what it was, but when I saw it, just those childhood memories, they kind of kick back in, where it's like, okay, you better straighten up. I wanted to use proper grammar, and I didn't want to say my bad words, because Miss Lorna Ivy was listening. So I'm going to be on my best behavior tonight. Hopefully, my favorite teacher, Ms. Lorna Ivy, is on and listening. If you are, thank you again so much for all you contributed to my life. There would be no Deep Dive Podcast were it not for you and your levels of concern, education for your students, and the patience that you had to deal with me. All right. So again, thank you everybody for getting on. And let me just jump right into how to get unstuck. This is very, very important, because some of we have our Facebook group, the Deep Dive Podcast Facebook group. And most of the topics, some of come directly from the group. People will give suggestions, they'll give recommendations, things of that nature. And one of the things that I'm getting over and over and over from people who are part of the Facebook group is saying, well, look, I just feel stuck in life. I feel like every which way I turn, I'm not getting the results that I desire, or things are not happening, and I just don't know what to do, and I feel stuck. So I wanted to kind of share with you again. This is going to be a 2-part episode, two parts in this series, but I wanted to share with you just some things that I have noticed, observed, or studied, or even experienced myself over the years in terms of feeling stuck, but more importantly, how do you move beyond that? One of the first things you want to do is identify what it is that you truly want. What is it that you want out of life? stuckness, and if that's a word, but being stuck or feeling stuck, it can be vague, it can be ambiguous, it can be, a feeling or something in life that's just not right. So you have to think about it from that particular standpoint. When you notice that you're feeling stuck, allow yourself some time to just clarify what it is that you truly want. You want to think about that. What is it that you want? What is it that you're trying to do? What is it that you're feeling that may potentially have you feeling this level of stuckness? And I'm gonna say that word over and over. Ms. Ivy, I don't know if that's a word or not. If it is not, don't hold that against me. But what is it that gives you that feeling? You know, you have to just kind of start to have conversations with yourself where you can kind of frame your desires, frame your hopes, frames what you really want to happen, as opposed to allowing it to happen to you just naturally. You want to become, I say this all the time, the masters of your fate, the captains of your soul. In other words, that means you want to be in control. You want to maintain, let's say, for example, you're talking about your salary at the job, right? These conversations are important. Remember, I talked to you about in a previous episode about the questions that you ask yourself. You may ask yourself something to the effect of, I want to maintain or increase my salary. Well, you want to say that rather than saying, I don't want to take a pay cut. Think about those two thoughts. I want to maintain or increase my salary rather than saying, I want to take a pay cut. Those are very similar, but they're totally different, if that makes sense. In other words, one has an era of negativity there. I don't want to take a pay cut. But when you talk about what you want, you're talking about it in the positive or you're affirming something in your life. That's one of the things that'll get you to a position where you can actually move, where you have some kind of, progression toward getting rid of that feeling of being stuck. There are some ways to identify what you want, because the next question someone would ask me, okay, you said, ask yourself the questions or have conversations with yourself about things that you want. But then some people like, well, how do I identify what do I want? If I'm confused or I feel stuck, how do I know what I want? One thing that's been extremely effective for me in the past, and so many people that I've coached through executive coaching and things of that nature, is to create a vision board. Create a vision board. It's just a poster board. You want to put it on your wall, and then you get a magazine or a book or whatever, and just cut out everything that you so desire. Or if it's something that's, not in a magazine or a book, just write it on there. Write it on your vision board. But everything that you so desire, you want to put that on your vision board. Now, I know it may sound quirky to a lot of people, but at the end of the day, guys, this is something that has a lot of power. There's a lot of power in having your vision board. I won't bore you with any details right now in the interest of time for this episode, but I will tell you, I know so many people, including myself, who magic has happened in their lives just by creating a visual representation of what matters to you, a visual representation of your desires and what you want in your life. Okay. Now, this board, like I said, it could be a poster board. It could be something on your wall. I typically like something that you physically have to do. Some people will do it on their iPad or on their computer, which is cool, no problem. But there's something about writing it out or cutting it out of a magazine and pasting it on this poster board. And you want to put it somewhere prominent in your house or apartment or whatever it may be, so that every day you'll see it, you'll pass by it. But this is one of the ways to identify what you want. Something else that will help you identify what you want is to determine what your values are. What are your values? What's important to you? Not just things, which may be, those things on your vision board, but what are your values in terms of what's important to you? Do you value relationships? Do you value loyalty? What is it that's important to you? Do you value what? Determination? Make a list, and this is your homework for this week. Make a list of the top 10 values, and then start to look for patterns within those values in terms of what makes you who you are. Okay, so just do that for yourself. Just create a list of 10 things, values, and just look for patterns that may identify who you are, because these are some of the things that you'll want to focus on as you move forward. Also, sometimes when you feel stuck, you want to change your perspective a little bit. And what do I mean by that? Well, sometimes feeling stuck could simply just be a mindset. If you've been on any of my podcasts, you know I talk frequently about the mindset. As a matter of fact, some of you know I wrote a book called The Mindset of a Champion. You'll see it over one of my shoulders here on the screen. But I wrote a book called The Mindset of a Champion because I study the mind. I study principles and thoughts, ideologies, patterns. I study people who have become champions in their chosen lives or careers, and they're all common denominators. And a lot of times when you feel stuck, it's just shifting your mindset. Sometimes your mindset can be the thing that's holding you back. You start to play a movie in your mind that may not be the reality of a situation, good or bad. And you can easily change your mindset by changing your thoughts. Okay. Negative thoughts, they don't have to be prominent in your mindset. You can replace those with positive thoughts. I've said this before, but the mind, it is physically impossible for the mind to occupy two thoughts at a time. It's physically impossible. You cannot think about two things at the same time. One day I'll prove it to you, but you cannot think about two things at the same time. So if you're thinking about this, if you have negative thoughts, the easiest way to not have negative thoughts is to replace those thoughts with positive thoughts. You can change that inner voice. That should be another episode of a podcast just to show you how to change that inner voice so you can become in control. But this helps you become, quote unquote, unstuck. Okay. A lot of times, too, when you want to become unstuck, you want to move your body. I think there's a song out called Move Your Body, right? But you want to move your body. Now, people may say, well, what does that have to do with feeling or, stuck? Well, it's simple. Tension and that quote unquote stuckness, it can sit in the body. It kind of locks your body up. You physically don't feel like doing certain things, right? That tension, that stress, that stiff neck, those stiff shoulders. Believe it or not, these things can contribute to you feeling stuck. And so how do you counteract that? Well, exercise. It can get you, positive chemicals going and running through your body. It loosens up the tension in the muscles in the shoulders and the neck and the stiffness. It has a positive effect on you that'll get those juices flowing where you actually can at least not feel stuck based on tension and stress. Think about that for a second. Sometimes being outside in nature, it literally does wonders for your well-being. There's something to be said about a person connecting to nature, whether it's through water, whether it's through whatever type of nature. A lot of people like to take walks or hikes, or whether it's a mountain or through woods or forests or parks, whatever it may be. But connecting with nature does wonders for your well-being as well. And so when you're getting moving, when you're doing all of these things, you want to, maybe take a yoga class or, go for a walk, stretch your neck, stretch your shoulders, stretch your arms, do any kind of exercises that will relax your body, that will relax your spirit, that will relax your mind. Also, when you're talking about getting unstuck, there are some things that you want to do to, let's say, for example, you set a date, right? And you park the decisions that you need to make about a business, about a relationship, whatever it may be, park the decisions until that particular date. For example, let's say 90 days from now, you're going to do X, Y, or Z, or you plan to do X, Y, or Z. Well, you want to go through your due diligence, right? In terms of whatever that means, but you don't want to start stressing out or, like we say in the country, have a cow before it's time to have a cow. You have 90 days to do what you need to do, set a date, and don't stress until it's beyond that particular date, because magic can happen between now and then, regardless of where you are or what you may think. It's very important. And sometimes we overthink things a lot. That's called analysis paralysis. That's when we continue to think about this and continue to think about that. And when we're thinking about those things, then a lot of times we talk ourselves into or out of particular situations. Think about that. We talk ourselves into or out of particular situations through analysis paralysis. So analysis paralysis is that thing that it'll make you question yourself. Give yourself some space to just kind of clear your head. Set that date. You can reevaluate your situation along the way. We have something called milestones that will allow you to kind of reevaluate as you go along. But then mark that date on your calendar and allow yourself to focus on present issues until then. In other words, you don't want to be, again, stressing out and just over analyzing things and overthinking things over and over and over again. And then a lot of people, they just talk themselves out of certain situations just because they overthink it. That's what analysis paralysis is. So once you're clear on what you want, just ask yourself, what's the next smallest step that I can take? What's the next thing that I can do to make this happen? It's so easy to get entangled with the stuckness, if you will, that you forget that there are small steps along the way that you can take and make progress. There are things that you can do to make progress, small, bite-sized steps, if you will. Eating that elephant one bite at a time. And, something else that does that actually helps you create, thoughts of success because you're having small victories on the way to your big victory, right? So don't dismiss the smaller steps. Don't overanalyze it. Don't get stuck and paralyzed by over evaluating every little situation. Then as I close out this particular episode, and remember, be reminded that this is a two-part episode because I'm going to go into part 2 next week. It's going to kind of give you the opposite version of what you need to do in terms of getting unstuck. It'll make sense to you next week. But the next thing you want to do is to be able to tap into your power a little bit. Sometimes stuckness can make you want to wallow in what seems like helplessness, right? You seem like it's just no matter what you do, no matter where you turn, you just feel helpless. Identify an aspect of your life where you feel like you're in control, something that you can do and something that you can control, and then do something about it. Look, you cannot be stuck and in motion at the same time. Remember, just like we talked about, your mind can't occupy 2 thoughts at the same time. Then you can't be stuck and in motion at the same time. So small activities build your power. It could be something as simple as deciding what do you want to eat. What is it that you want to eat for dinner tonight? People go through this every day, all types of families, all types of people, all types of situations. They go through this all the time, deciding what's for dinner. I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. What do you want? What are you going to eat? I don't know. What are you going to eat? Well, let's eat out. Okay, let's eat out. Well, what do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want? That's funny. I'm laughing because I do that myself. I do that. All my families, my sisters, we do that all the time. But sometimes just making a decision, that gives you some power. Like, you know what? Tonight we're going to go to Longhorn Steakhouse. I don't know, whatever it may be. But you're making that decision. Sometimes just making that phone call. I've started to develop myself to a point where when something comes to my mind, whether I need to text someone or call someone or whatever, calling is rare. I'm not a big phone person, but I do it right then and there. Right then and there. I don't care what it is, what time it is. I do it right then and there. I think that's important to make that kind of decision, but also I don't want to forget. You don't know what that the other person is dealing with at that time. I believe in the laws of attraction. So, make a decision. If it's somebody you need to call just to say hello, to check on them, make that phone call. These are small victories. These are small things along the way that gives you power, right? Something else that's pretty important is self-care. Remember, we're talking about how to become unstuck. Well, sometimes you just have to rest. You have to recharge. You have to kind of focus. I'm as guilty of this as anybody where, I'll just work, work, work. I don't, get the proper rest. Sometimes I don't recharge, vacations, things of that nature. I'm just working through it. So this is one of my challenges as well, but it is important for you to have this self-care if you're feeling stuck, right? During any kind of challenging time, keep in mind that it's your responsibility for your well-being. You can't worry about your employer. You can't worry about this person, or this person. You have to worry about you first. You are the goose that lays the golden eggs in your life. So it's your responsibility for your well-being. Do what you need to do to look after yourself, to look after your well-being, whether that's, having a good diet, whether that's getting proper sleep, healthy movement. Remember, we're talking about movement as well, and just staying connected with people. I think that's very important. These all are things that are important in terms of self-care. And as we close out again, let me just kind of give you just some suggestions of what self-care may mean. Here's a big one for me, and it's a big one for a lot of people. Take a break from technology or social media sometimes. Sometimes people get so caught up into social media, what other people are doing, all of these, fake people, as I call them, creating all of these lifestyles that aren't true. It causes you to second guess yourself in a lot of instances, and their non-reality becomes your reality. Well, look, social media can be fun. If you're doing it for business, it's a must. I do it for business. I know other people who do it for business. But sometimes you just have to detox from social media and technology, unplug, even if it's just for an hour. Some of you, I challenge you to put your phones away for an hour. Some people, they're never an hour detached from their phone. Think about that. Never. They sleep with their phone. Some people sleep with their phone on their chest. Some people sleep with their phone under their pillow. People just don't get away from that phone, that technology. I challenge you to take an hour break a day from social media, from technology. Make a gratitude list. What are you grateful for? Go to bed earlier. Take a mental health day. Do some inner work on yourself. All of these things are super important, guys, as you continue to get unstuck and develop yourself to become a whole person. All right. So we're going to end this particular part one of this episode, but part two is going to be very important. I want everybody to tune in next week for part two, but here's why. Because when you do all of those things and they still don't work, the question becomes, when is it time to seek help getting unstuck? Because you can go through all of the things that I talked about tonight, but when is it time to get help, right? In terms of getting unstuck. We're going to talk about that on next Thursday night, so make sure you tune in for part two. For those of you who are all around the world, again, I thank you guys. I thank all of you for joining me on this episode of the Deep Dive Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, download, and share this podcast. So many people are getting a lot of mileage from it, and I want you to be able to do the same thing. All right, so with that, God bless each and every one of you, and I'll see you on the beaches of the world. Yeah.